Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Notre Dame fans, whenever you are watching or listening to this week's show. Appreciate you for making us a part of your day. I'm Mike Singer. With me is Tim Hyde. We're going to be talking some Notre Dame football today. And in a bit, shocker, we're talking about Notre Dame football. And in a bit, Jack Soble, Blue and Gold beat writer, will be joining us, the boots on the ground in South Bend, to discuss some things that he is seeing and hearing in South Bend. Tim, you look very festive, rocking your Notre Dame gear for the show. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing really good. I got an old gray Adidas I found. I don't think I've worn this in 10 years, so that'll be good. It must be from the Weiss era right there. So, no, I mean, doing really good, man. I was actually cruising over to the house over here to get hyped. And I mean, here we are at the end of spring. We only got a couple more days. We're going to have a little shindig on Saturday, a little popcorn, and enjoy the little day. And then, bam, it's on to the summer training camp. And can Notre Dame beat Miami in Miami since the first time since the late 70s? Not that they played a lot since the last time, obviously, but 89, yeah, and then 17, and that's it since then. But no, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited. I know I told you I was excited about the team.
Well, that's a talking point for today, so don't dive into
Exactly.
that
So
yet.
let's get rocking. Let's get rocking.
So, but here's the problem. When I just give Tim here, you wanted to talk about this here. I have no idea where it's going. So Tim could say it's a positive thing, but then he just goes and trolls me for 10 minutes, talks crap about Angeli, whatever. You never know with Tim Hyde.
But we will definitely talk quarterback, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, we will. Tim, you could make an argument that going into this spring ball, injury stuff aside,
Sure.
it's like one of the more interesting spring balls Notre Dame's had in a long time, with the quarterback battle being, the chief of the reasons. But man, has this been like the most boring spring ball of all time, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could say boring because Freeman's put the lockdown like he's East Berlin over there. In the 1950s, nothing's getting out, so he's kind of locked that up. But other than that, it's exciting. I mean, just the little snippets of videos, and then the few times that the fellas have been there to watch some of even if it's a little practice, little warm ups. You're just seeing a lot of the young guys, and to me, that's what this spring is. It's just so much about the up and comers, the large contingency of early entries. Last year's, it's always the last year's class we forget about. Tay Johnson, we forgot was on the team, and now he's rocking and rolling all over the place. So Joe Otting from a few years ago is obviously the number one center because they don't have a center, but hey, he's been there 3 years. My philosophy, lineman, let's see where the hell you are in year 3. And that's where we're at with him and many others. Styles Prescott, the same thing. Knapp starts the entire season last year. He's out this spring, but everyone forgot about Styles being a huge recruit a year ago. So no, it's all exciting, when you get those. But you are right, a little bit boring because I think we want to know about the damn quarterback, and it's like, let's get to it. And when you have a 3-team race, it's like, come on, how the heck are you doing a 3-team race? But we'll dive into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a big part due to the media access is cut in half. And I've talked about this so many times. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I understand why they're doing it. It's because it's a disjointed spring with all the injuries and whatnot. I mean, you have Devin Houston going from the bottom of the depth chart defensive lineman to now like second team guard, like that on offense. Like that's kind of where you're at. It's like, all right, here's Steve Angeli, Kenny Minchie, CJ Carr. Here, your job's on the line here to start. Like you're fighting for that QB1 spot, and here's Devin Houston to block for you. Which, no disrespect to Devin Houston, he's just now playing off. Like that's where the spring is at. It's just very fascinating, and so yeah. Again, I understand why there's such little access, and the interviews are great. Like I know pretty much everyone on the roster and everyone on staff gets to talk to the media at least once this spring, and Freeman's available 3-4 times or something.
Sure. I think that's a positive.
It's the practice clips, and the first practice has always been fully open, and then you get a scrimmage, but you get more of those stretching, and you get to see some drills. Yeah, it's like cut in half this year, but again, I understand.
And it's all good, but you're right. You get to talk to each coach. They dive into a bunch of stuff. The players obviously are given, a little bit of snippets and some info there. It's just good to just see them all. Obviously, the great season carry this into 25. So it's now we're at the end. It's like, okay, what's the QB situation at 5:00 on Saturday? What's going to happen is that the portal opens Monday, I believe. Right? Is it Monday or the fall? No, correct?
It's the 16th.
Okay, so
That's
Tuesday.
Monday. No.
Is it Monday? Heck out of
8
me
days
now.
from now. Wednesday. Next Wednesday, I think. I think it's the 16th. 16th to the 25th, I think.
Gotcha. It's one of those. I have no idea. I knew it was going to be next week. So they're going to do that. Are we going to have Buckner was in that thing the Monday after his spring. Pine found out he wasn't, there was going to be a transfer on Wednesday. He was in the portal on Friday by noon. So I think we're going to learn a lot pretty quick next week of what training camp is how that's going to be set up. And then, heck, Mike, we could be here next week and everyone's returning and we'll be like, okay, how's that going to work come August? But there's never a dull moment. There's always something to chat about.
Well, yeah, that's on the discussion. So I really don't like when you do that, Tim. Come on, we're talking.
Man, I'm just rambling. I'm just going. I got 17 thoughts in my brain. So
17. Check that on the bingo card. Tim says a random number. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new here. And of course, if you're listening via podcast, appreciate you. Please leave us a nice review wherever you listen to your podcast. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, Tim, but I don't know if this is allowed to be said. I don't know. But I think there's there's practices after spring ball ends too, which is there's no media access whatsoever. But it can't be that much of a secret when recruits are scheduling spring visits after the blue gold game and they tell me it's for a practice. So it's like, all right, I don't know. I don't know how you can keep things a secret like this, Notre Dame. But I find that interesting because this spring game is only practice number 11 or 12 or something. So yeah, they do have a few more practices that they can do after the blue gold game, which I've been telling you guys for a while, or at least I've been saying it on blueandgold.com. It is not going to be your traditional scrimmage. I actually put that in an article the other day, and then Freeman confirmed it the next day. It's not going to be Coach Wash versus Coach Dealin McCullough. It's not that. It's going to be just a scrimmage. It's going to be offense versus defense.
And
they don't have enough to break up.
Years. Exactly. And they did that for years on years on years. So, there's been plenty of spring games where it's just O versus D. You don't split up into teams. So, no, it is what it is. This, we still get to watch a lot of guys run around and have some fun, and we'll overanalyze it like crazy.
Yeah, we will be live after the blue gold game right here on this YouTube channel. Tim, some not good news to share. Gerby Lambert, who is someone we definitely speculated about potentially making a jump into the first team offensive line. He's going to be out for the remainder of the spring, which obviously is not a very long time with the shoulder injury. But Marcus Freeman saying that it is, shoulder surgery to repair his labrum and not expected to be back until the fall. Just based on Googling, it's like a 6-month thing. So what was your thoughts when you heard this news, Tim?
Yeah, same thing. All right, we'll see you in October. When you do a labrum, you're out. You start Googling it. Mike Goolsby's had it before. I know he's talked about it in the past. Whenever this topics come up with past players, any other injuries, it's a process. You got to, especially a large offensive lineman, getting that strength back and getting that shoulder back healthy. So this is a kick in the pants, as they say. And Freeman said it as well. He'll be back in the fall. That could be October 15th. That could be November 15th. So
could be fall camp. It could be back for that's. I would hope.
That's tough. I know someone posted on the message board, oh, he's back in 6 weeks. I'm like, 6 weeks? I'm like, it's not a labrum, but this stinks. So whatever's quicker, good for him. Obviously, get back in the running, but I would think it's going to be sometime, once season kicks off and he's back slowly into the the swing of things here. But at least the good thing is, as soon as it happened, bam, it sounded like he had surgery the next day. So he's already begun that process.
So much of the discussion about the offensive line, Tim, was there's 6 guys for 5 spots, and Gerby was one of the 6, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
That's what the fans say. That's to me, that's a fan thing, constantly throwing him into the starting lineup.
Well, no, it was just, it was a discussion, right? It's like, here's the 6 that would make the most sense. Now it seems like it's pretty likely that you got Knapp, Craig, Schrouth, Joggysaw, and Wagner. Like, that seems pretty. That's the 5, and it looks like Knapp at left tackle because if Charles is playing guard, and Billy's playing guard, and Craig's playing center, and Knapp's gonna keep playing left tackle, and Wagner's gonna play right tackle. Tim, that's what it seems like it's trending towards.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I said before spring ball started, I thought the entire key to the 2025 O-line is, where's Waldo? As in, where's Charles? I think as soon as we knew where Charles was, everything kind of, falls into place there. I know everyone's hyped about Lambert because of his star rating, and they're like, well, he's got to be in there. Well, sometimes those guys aren't in right away. They take a couple of years. Same as Wagner, right? He was a 5-star. Took him till 3 years, even though Lambert twice his size. But
Tim, those star rankings can be a blessing and a curse, bro.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's the instance. Like, well, Lambert should start. He was a 5. It's like it doesn't work like that, as we know. Half of every 5 stars every year bust out. So there's no such thing as guarantees. But just like the NFL draft, you got everyone doing a mock draft with glasses and their hats on Twitter, having fun, and 99% of those are going to be wrong. But going back to Lambert, yeah, I mean, he was always there, but then you hear Coach Rudolph talk, and it's like, yeah, he's going back and forth, but he's really been at right tackle. Played right tackle his entire high school life. He's been right tackle every single day he's been at Notre Dame. So, and with Anthony Knapp, obviously, he started every single game last year until he got injured against Penn State. So you kind of, to me, it was all about Charles. If he stays at left tackle, Knapp's going to be one of the starting guards. If Charles is inside, which when you hear Coach Rudolph talk, makes tons and tons of sense because they see a potential first-round pick at guard, someone who could be a first-team All-American, Outland Trophy type candidate. So, bam, easy. You keep Knapp. He's 875 snaps, whatever he had, something like that last year. Yeah. Come back another year. He's been practicing. You saw him in gear. He's been getting some work out there on the practice field. He's not doing any of the team stuff, but he's out there getting his workout in and everything. And some of the pictures that were on Twitter, it looks like he weighs about 305 pounds. He's huge. Yeah. So he has not missed a meal, which is good. So, you get all those guys back in the summer, and you got, returning starter. You got Billy. You got Knapp. Getting Ashton back healthy. He looks great, by the way, in the pictures, and just seeing him in some of the videos off to the side. So really excited for him. Charles is coming back, and then you got Emil Wagner, 990 snaps under his belt. That's insane. Yeah. when you look back at some of that, but it's a solid group of 5. The thing is, I know every fan loved getting rid of the old guys that left, but man, who the heck is going to come in? Because every year somebody's missed snaps. Someone, they've had to go to the bench every year. You look at Joel Altshire, he was the 4th offensive tackle. So hopefully they don't have to go to 4 offensive tackles here. You got
Tex ND said Styles Prescott's making waves, which we've covered with Horka.
Great spring for him. Getting every single rep with the first
Absher seems right there, Tim.
Exactly. So you got that next wave, kind of like how Rocco and Coogan were for a couple of years, and then you got is Absher ready to come in and be in that group. Peter Jones, obviously another year older as well, getting some reps. Who's the third tackle is the key?
Will Black? Joel came in August. Joel came in August and played.
Didn't play till October.
Yeah, so maybe that's all you need him for.
3 other injuries. So we always got to remind, it's not like he just kept working his way up. Everyone got hurt. So coming in the summer and unless he's just a dude, but it's a different world coming from Connecticut pass rushers to Division I football get ready to play Miami and A&M back to back. So,
Yeah.
if Black was an early enrollee, he's in that mix right away. But as life has it, he's not. So the O-line, you got rid of, obviously, as we talked, the old guys. Who's that next group? It's just depth. Me as a football coach, it's just depth. They're gone. You've been able to replenish. Like when they got hurt a couple of years ago, you had Ashton come in right away when Zeke got hurt. Rocco, you got Billy replace Rocco. Last year, heck, man, you had Charles get hurt. Boom. Obviously, a true freshman replaces him, but he was here all spring. Rocco comes in. Coogan comes in. So who is that Coogan Rocco this year?
Let me ask you this, Tim, and we got to do this quickly. We've got to talk about Augie's locker room. So you've mentioned a couple times, the old guys leaving, Spindler and Pat Coogan.
And Coogan.
What's the opposite? Like what's the argument for like keep them and then you're benching Billy? Craig? Or
Billy's a starter. I mean, if Rocco Spindler's back, then Charles is probably an offensive tackle. No, I
so now you're benching Knapp?
We talked about this before, where this is that new age. Back in the old days, man, you don't get rid of fifth-year seniors. They come back. You got older guys, and everyone just keeps waiting their turn, building, getting better each and every year. This new era,
play the best guys.
You could cut fifth-year guys. It's not so much the best guys. You could cut those fifth-year guys, because if you don't, someone else may transfer. It's that whole return on investment there. And that's the crazy dynamic. So you got rid of 50 starts between those two, and you have gotten
a lot due to injury, Tim, because guys got hurt. A lot of those starts are because guys got hurt.
Yeah, but they started the year before.
Yeah, and then they got passed on because the other guys were better.
And Rocco was injured coming back from an injury. And then once he got in the lineup, he was in the lineup all year.
Tim, I'm just telling you, man, they're playing the best guys.
Exactly. So, but I'm saying someone's going to go down. It's happened every year. But every year someone's going to go down.
Coogan and Spindler weren't just going to come back and sit on the bench, though. So, of course, they were going to go. Spindler's making a lot of money.
Exactly. That goes back to this day and age. You could do that with a fifth-year senior. But who is going to replace them? Who is that next guy in that could come in and play like they did, right? Or even like a Billy did when Rocco got hurt against Clemson in 23. Billy came in. Well, Billy had been the starter all winter, spring. Rocco beat him out.
Yeah.
But at least he had all that experience coming in, obviously super talented, and he's been in the lineup ever since. Who's that Billy Schroff in 2025?
Yeah.
Is it Asher? Yeah. Is it Peter Jones? Those are those questions, and that's why obviously you keep recruiting, you keep building up young talent, hoping that they're ready to go when their times come. So we're gonna have injuries on the O-line. Someone's gonna play. Someone's gonna get hurt. So you got to get ready for that.
Yeah, you're always looking for something new, and you can find something new here at Augie's locker room, which this is new. Notre Dame football replica jersey signed by Jeremiah Love. I mean, this thing is like, what, 3 or 4 dinners? Nice dinners. Maybe it's more than 3 or 4 Taco Bell trips, which I haven't been in a couple weeks. I'm having a little withdrawal over here. But Jeremiah Love signed jersey. It says Go Irish. And it's $265. Some really cool stuff over at Augie's locker room. You can get Chris Zorich signed jersey for $135, not game worn, but a Chris Zorich. It's got the number 50, $135. Guys, go to augieslockerroom.com/shop. Text ND says, I'm going to Augie's on Friday. Hell yeah, absolutely. Make the trip. You won't regret it. You can see the vintage helmet display dating back to 1890. You can find exclusive Joe Montana signed items, famous sculptor Jerry McKenna's replicas of the bronze statue around the stadium, and just cool stuff all of the time. If you can't make it to Augie's, you got the online shop. Like this, this green signed by Drake Bowen and Ben Morrison. The Rocket signing a full-size replica helmet guys, what are we doing? How are these things not sold out? Why are you guys not buying these things? Augie'sLockerRoom.com. Check it out. If you talk to Augie, tell him Mike Singer sent you. So text ND, tell him Mike Singer sent you. You can give him a call, 574-277-6363. Augie store is located at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, right down the street from Notre Dame. I think Augie signed on for us as a sponsor for a while, but even if that expires, I don't know, man. I still am going to talk about Augie's Locker Room. It's just it's an institution. It's an institution. We want to support it. Love Augie. Great guy. Great shop. Check it out, Augie'sLockerRoom.com. Tim, you shot me a text when I asked you about topics for the show, and you said you can't keep 4 for training camp. Okay. Let's dive into that a little bit. What's on your mind?
Well, you can, but how are you? So this is you can bring Jack in if he's waiting. We can start diving.
He's not back here yet. No,
he's not here yet. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean I don't know how you're going to keep 4. I don't know how they kept 4 this spring. Tell you the truth. So because I'm someone who's obviously coached a long time, been through some quarterback wars, some competition, and you could say what you want, but every time someone's getting a rep, 2 are watching. So it's like, how are you getting better in spring football when you only get a third of the snaps and you're watching for 2/3? I've never understood that. So I don't know how they're doing it. Obviously they are. They're all getting their equal reps, but just think about that. It's like you get your 8 snaps and then you go watch for 16, right? Because everyone's getting 8, right? So you're just sitting and watching. So you're constantly waiting your turn, and instead of just, hey, you get 5, you get 5. You know what I mean? You're going fast in and out. You're constantly watching 2 snaps, waiting for your 1. And that's why I'm saying you can't. Well, you can, but I don't want to say use the word can't. But it's like, how in the heck are you going to do this again in training camp? They have to know. I mean, these guys, professional coaches, they're hell of a coaches, really good, really smart, all successful everywhere they've been. Gino's obviously been through this as a player, so how in the heck are they gonna figure this out? I guess, is my biggest question. Then, how do they figure it out? What, like I'm saying, with such limited snaps. So they went into the spring knowing guys are going to have limited snaps. So how does that competition look, and how does it carry into the summer? Meaning, they got to know after. That's why I said Saturday at 5:00 when they're all hanging out after the little practice, chilling, going back to Freeman's house, having some, barbecue and soda pops. How are they gonna? I mean, how are you getting this? I don't want to say adult beverages, so I use soda pops. All right.
All right. Let me ask you this, Tim. Let's just make this super simple, okay? Spring ball ends, right? And there's so much discussion about the competition's going to go into fall camp. If the competition goes into August and all 3 are still on the roster, you're screwed if you want to transfer. If you're like, I want to leave, if I'm not the guy, you leave in August. You can't leave in August, right? There's not a window for August, right?
Unless you're a grad transfer.
None of them. Well, Steve may. I think Steve might graduate in May, so maybe he could. But at that point, if Steve's not QB1, he would be QB2, right? I mean, unless he would be QB3, I don't know. But you would assume he'd be QB2. So it's like, leaving. What, are you going to leave in August? No, you're not going to leave in August. You're going to get 2 weeks of practice. Where are you going to go play? I don't think Steve Angeli wants to go play at, Texas Northwestern Tech University State or something. Like what do you do there, Tim? So I feel like if there's going to be some of the transfer, you got to do it after spring. The writing would have to be on the wall, and you'd have to do it in spring. That's my opinion.
I mean, these guys just had their ninth practice, and that's multiple meetings on top of those, weight room sessions, film sessions, breakdown, installs. I mean, these guys have to know. I mean, some, you know what I mean? Players know. They do. I mean, players know
I don't know.
who are the guys. There's no way in hell, excuse my French, that three guys are equal. If three guys are equal, then you and I are going to be at the Pop-Tarts Bowl. If these guys can't separate, for crying out loud. If you got three equal guys, it's not. I highly doubt we have three NFL quarterbacks.
But in terms of what the guys are being told and what the guys think, they may all have a thought that they're the leader in the clubhouse.
And that's why after spring, there's got to be a discussion. I mean, there's got to be a pecking order, for crying out loud. I mean, there has to be a pecking order because you have to get ready for the season. And if your whole concentration when training camp starts, July 31st, August 1st, whatever it is, the entire every inch of that practice, every second is getting ready. Obviously, you're building a team, you're doing all that good stuff, but it's about Miami, just like last year was about A&M. So you got to go beat Miami. And so you can't go into August. What I'm trying to say is you can't go into August just like, all right, we're going to do this again. Eventually, you have to start building the team for the season.
I really think someone's going to leave after spring ball. Herrick said Tyler Buckner proved leaving after the Blue Gold game seems too late, so maybe we keep them all. He started.
Yeah, he went to Alabama and got a start.
Yeah, he got a start. It was not too late at all.
Not late at all.
Man.
I mean, the staff knows. They can say whatever the heck they want.
But if I'm the staff, Tim, I don't want any of them to leave. I want all that depth.
So what are you going to do with your freshman? What are you going to do with your freshman that comes in next year? I mean, there's got to be a process where bottom line is you need three quarterbacks. Four is too much. It's too much.
I'm curious what Jack Soble thinks.
Because no one's getting ready, or Blake Hebert, who's had a lot of positive reviews, but when the hell is he going to get better, right? When's he going to get some reps? In 2 years? So there's got to be.
I feel like it's a Tim Hydeism. You go play on the scout team, get your ass kicked. We'll see you in 2 years. I feel like that's a Tim Hyde thing that he would say.
And that's what we're doing with the O-line, but it's the same thing with the O-line, right? The O-line has kind of had a cleansing. You had Coogan and Spindler's been around for 23 and 24. They got one more year left, but they're like, we love you guys. You gave us 50 starts. You kicked butt, but we got to get Sullivan Absher ready. We got to get so-and-so ready. We got to get some of these other guys ready. So it's a cleansing. I mean, sometimes you have to do it. And I think the quarterback room is there. And I was always surprised. I know we talked about this in January, like it was going to be a 3-man race. I was surprised after the season they didn't have a talk and say, we're going with these two. You figure out what you want to do. And Blake, you're already coming in, so you're on the team. So I was always amazed they wanted to do a 3-man quarterback race. It hasn't been done since 2012. So that tells you how rare it is.
Yes, it's just a good group. So why
is it? Yeah. Is it? All right. Well, that's what we're gonna find out in August.
Jack, what do you Jack Soble, Blue and Gold beat writer? What do you think about this discussion here? Weigh in on this.
I'm kind of with Tim that I don't think it would make too much sense to carry a 3-man competition into fall camp.
From whose angle?
From Notre Dame's. I think it would make sense, presuming you're still undecided, which we believe they will be, to cut it down to 2 so that whoever ends up being the starter gets more reps. I'm kind of in the Tim camp where it would be hard to, like, you would need to decide really quickly, because like splitting the reps 3 ways doesn't seem like the best way to prepare for Miami. It would be one thing if they were playing like, group of 5 team. Obviously we have to be careful about saying that Notre Dame has lost to 2 group of 5 teams in the last 3 seasons, but it's just, and also like, I would think Notre Dame has some idea of who's third after spring ball, and I think it would be fair to that person to tell them and give them a chance to find an opportunity.
Yeah, I fully agree with that last part. That's the key. But if they don't know and they still, like, what if Kenny really has balled out and it's like, man, Steve, we maybe thought was going to be the guy before spring ball. Now we don't know. It's like we would want to go with 3.
So
Notre Dame's got to make the best choice for them at
Correct.
first and foremost.
So if they tell us it's still 3 of them after spring ball, and what we see in fall camp reflects that, I don't think that would be a great sign. Just because, like, just pure math. Like, I'm not saying anything about any of the quarterbacks, but like, there are just not a lot of good quarterbacks in college football, and like good starting caliber quarterbacks in who are good enough to start Notre Dame. And I have a hard time believing Notre Dame has 3 of them on its roster. It's just it's hard to wrap my head around that. So like, if you told me all 3 of them are still in it, I would think, oh, that it's not going super well.
I do think that someone's going to leave after the end of spring, and I don't think it's Steve, and I don't think it's CJ, unless I don't know, unless CJ.
I will say Kenny, aside from the terrible pick 6, Kenny looked good. To the point where I was going back and forth between him and Carr as to who was the best one in team. I thought Kenny looked good outside the pocket in particular, like not just like scrambling, like he was finding guys on scrambling. I'm not saying Angeli's third. I'm just saying Angeli was third in that particular practice. But I mean, it is tough because, like, obviously we did not come away from that practice thinking I know who QB1 is. So who knows? Maybe all 3 are good enough to start Notre Dame. It would be probably the first time in Notre Dame history they've had 3 quarterbacks on the roster who are good enough to start Notre Dame right now. Like, can you correct me if I'm wrong? I'm sure they've had 3 starting caliber quarterbacks on the roster at once, but like good enough to start in the same year. Like that, they're just not a lot of good quarterbacks in the world.
What about Pine, Buckner, Cone? Was that a year? Yeah.
No, it was not.
That was not a year. They were
11-1. No. But
they were all on the same team.
Let me add.
Well, they're all on the same team, but yeah, that's not 3 quarterbacks who are good enough to start in Notre Dame.
I mean, they all started at Notre Dame and they won games. I mean,
true. I mean, you could go back. You had Golson, Kaiser and Zaire all on the same team and all started games, but eventually it all weeded itself out. 2 of them transferred.
Weigh in here, Tim.
I want to jump onto something which is, I got some Timmy Hyde sticky notes all over the place, which has been just rattling my brain today, is reading Jax and Tyler and watching their great video after the scrimmage on Saturday. Is you kept hearing all this stuff about the O-line. Well, even the projected front 5, starting 5, is not the Great Wall of China. Okay, they're not the Cowboys O-line of the 90s blocking for Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith. There's going to be some chaos at times now. And so and I've been watching a lot of 2024. I've been going back, rewatching, me, I've been breaking down the hell out of the O-line, and I've just had so much fun doing it, going back, rewatching the big games from last year. And the more I watch, I'm like, how in the world does Notre Dame meaning Freeman, Denbrock, Gino, the whole entire team, the coaching staff, how do you not want someone that could get out of trouble? So when you hear all the reports from Saturday, well, the O-line, Minchie got out of the pocket and threw a nice pass. CJ Carr, the very last touchdown, eluded a bunch of rushers, dropped back, boom, threw a dime to Burris.
Well, I'll correct you on the last one. Like there's a good chance that would have been a sack if he did a great job standing in the pocket and making the throw, but it's a good chance that would have been a sack if he was live.
Sure, and it's a scrimmage, and what, he probably could have scrambled in a real live game or whatever. But whatever it is, the whole point is rewatching Riley, rewatching last year's team. I mean, there are so many times. I mean, my God, how many times on 3rd and 2, Riley's like, I'm just going to run QB power. I'm going to get 2.5 yards, continue the sticks. How does Notre Dame not want to just keep that going? Because it's extremely effective. Then you're going to have a better quarterback, because Riley Leonard's not the greatest passing quarterback. Going back, keep rewatching the film, like, my God, he was horrible some games. I broke down Georgia Tech the last 2 nights, and Riley Leonard was horrible. I'm like, I don't know how he's going to make an NFL team unless just get some luck. It's just not some great throws over time. So point is, if the O-line is going to give up some stuff, man, how do you not want a quarterback to get out of havoc and to cause havoc with your legs and Minchie and Carr are light years better passers than Riley Leonard. They just are. So they're just, those guys would be able to do much more out of the pocket than Steve is. That's the truest thing there is. I believe in this whole quarterback debate and moving forward. And even the last point is, we've talked about this a million times, is the amount of athletic quarterbacks Denbrock's had. How does Steve Angeli fit in that? And it's not negative Steve or anything, but it's just comparing him as an athlete, because if you don't have a quarterback that could run, bam, you better have a Michael Floyd on the outside, because they will put 9 guys in the box because they don't believe a quarterback could hurt you. At least Riley allowed wiggle room because you had to respect him at all times. No one's going to respect Steve in that pocket as a runner.
I don't think we know that Kenny and CJ are better passers than Riley at this, but like I get that Riley was not perfect a lot, but I think he was a better passer than he gets credit for, particularly towards the end of the season when the offense was rolling. We just haven't seen enough for, like, we haven't seen enough from those guys to say that definitively. And like, yeah, the mobility is a factor, but A, it can't be the only factor. B, I think Steve is a better athlete than he gets credit for. Like, he can make plays with his legs. Where he gets a stature reputation, I think that's much more of an awareness thing. That's much more of a
play. Every time you hear a statue, everyone brings up the Purdue where he just stood there, didn't blink, and the guy just like, dude, he's in front of you, buddy. You know what I mean?
There were a couple plays
that just stick to people.
There were a couple plays in the Sun Bowl that were like that, but again, like, he obviously has a ton of qualities, and like, while some people on our board push back on it, like the fact that he has done it before and come in.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, not being able to throw. I mean, maybe I keep thinking of because I rewatched USC over the weekend. That interception Riley threw, I'm like, I still can't believe he threw that thing. It's
sure, he was good for one of those. He was good for one of those every couple games.
Yeah, but there was times Riley's his arm was just like beyond weak. And when you watch Minchie and Carr, sure, he threw some nice passes against Ohio State, Penn State. I'm not saying that. I mean, we know he did that. I'm saying overall, going back rewatching the games, Carr and Minchie coming in have better arms. I got to believe they have better lively arms to get the ball vertically down the field much more than Riley Leonard had that ability.
Leonard was more a consistency and mechanics thing than arm talent. He has tons of arm talent. It was more of a consistency and mechanics. Like, his mechanics would go through these random lapses that obviously were a lot more prevalent early in the season than they were late. Like, but to the arm talent point, like, Minchie probably has the most elastic arm in that, like, he can throw on the move and get enough torque from his arm to do that. Carr's, from what I've seen, is pretty smooth throwing on the move. I don't know if his arm is as elastic as Minchie. Steve is really accurate in the pocket. I haven't seen him throw on the run like that. Maybe a couple times in the Penn State game, but those were panic scramble plays.
Steve's good. I mean, Steve had some plays in the past, in the fourth quarter, we've seen him, and obviously at Oregon State, he had a couple boots and all that. So, and then even going back to his high school, I mean, he did some outstanding things on the run, in high school there in Jersey, play action. So Steve could still do all that. I think Steve gets the stick in the mud. He's not. The guy could run. We saw that in the Sun Bowl where he had a nice QB draw.
Look, Tim,
good scrambles. Yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about the Leonard thing. Like, how can you go away from that? Do you think that Carr does fill that void? Or is it just Minchie that would be?
Carr could run. I mean,
but like, so are you running Carr like you would run Leonard?
I don't think you run Minchie like you ran Leonard. Like, that was like, I think Freeman's alluded to this. Like, Leonard.
Yeah, Leonard's a stud. No, I was going to say Leonard's a stud when it comes to QB power. He had I keep going back because, like I said, I rewatched the Georgia Tech game the last two nights, breaking that thing down. That run he has to the right pylon for a touchdown where he just slices it and just runs by like 4 Georgia Tech guys is just, there's no one on that roster that could do that. He's a special runner.
I don't think you're ever going to have a game plan from week to week that was so that used the quarterback run as a crutch as much as Notre Dame did last year. At least as long as Denbrock's here. Like, I think, judging by some of Denbrock's comments in spring ball, like he said that there are details missing all over the tape, and they were never confident in the passing game, and that was partly like Leonard thing. That was partly a receiver's thing. I think the biggest factor was just that his offense is complicated, hard to learn, and they just missed a lot of the little details that make it go. And I suspect that was part of why they favored Leonard so hard in the portal last year, because they needed someone who was that special with his legs to make up for everything that they knew was going to be rocky in year one.
Yeah. My point for bringing up, or my last question, Tim, people in the chat are saying neither can run like Leonard. I know, but Tim was talking about Leonard, like, and Denbrock likes quarterbacks who can run. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, none of them are close. So it's not like the gap from like Steve to Minchie, if you're going most like least athletic to most athletic, it's not that big. And then it's like a huge gap between those three to Leonard in terms of like design quarterback run stuff. I mean, so.
But I'm going back, when I think of Denver, I'm going back to, I mean, Kaiser. He would run Kaiser 8 to 10 times a game. You know, just some zone read, keep teams honest. He'd run counter with him. Golson. I mean, Golson, you know, would get outside the pocket and run a bunch in 14 when Denbrock was the OC. And obviously, you know, Ritter, Daniels is just obviously a freak, you know, athlete to begin with. So I'm not saying you're running
Minchie like 4 times a game, 5 times, like, but
sure.
You could run him a little more than that.
Sure you can, but that's the zone read. That you could RPO more on the outside. You could do those things, I believe, more with Minchie than you can Angeli. Yeah, you can. All you have to do is watch them as athletes on their high school film, and you see it right in front of you. So it's right there.
Here's something I'd like to point out. Like, the coaching staff has just so much more data on these guys than we will ever have, based on like high school film and what we've seen in very limited game action and what we see when we go to practice. So like, we can talk about this all they want, like all we want, and like obviously the coaching staff isn't perfect. Like, it's possible they make the wrong decision. It's just like, we kind of have to give them the benefit of the doubt with what they choose, because like, we haven't seen enough to say otherwise. So like, I'm not saying that breaking down all these guys is pointless, because there's obviously a point to it. Like, we want to talk about what their strengths and weaknesses are, but as far as like who's good enough to start Notre Dame, like, we can't possibly know that based on the data we have.
Yeah, talking about like the Purdue sack, like they have seen how many times have we seen Steve drop back in a college game? 50 to 100 times, something like that. More, maybe a little bit more. Whatever.
I think maybe 80 something.
So let's just say it's 80. They have seen Steve Angeli do that, and maybe it's not the defensive lineman's going to hit the quarterback, but they've seen him in live bullet action in that kind of setting 1,000 times over 3 years, 1,500, 2,000. I don't know. So there's definitely a point to what you're saying, Jack. So when we have these discussions, you know, I try to lean in on, yes, my own takes on this, but also what I'm hearing behind the scenes. So, you know, sometimes I, sneak that into these discussions. I did want to ask you guys both this, and I didn't plan on just talking quarterbacks the entire time with Jack, but I am enjoying it.
But we can.
I'd talk about the rest of the team. There's other stuff going on.
We can dive into that in a second, but I did want to ask you guys both this. Tomorrow's August 31st. What are you doing? Who are you going with?
I can't possibly answer that question with any, like, it's not my job. That's why the coaching staff gets paid millions of dollars and I don't. But B, like, we've seen one full practice in spring, and maybe my answer would be different if one of the quarterbacks was head and shoulders above the other two, but they weren't. Like, we can't. I don't think, like, I would not feel good in my job if I answered that question with any sort of confidence.
Tim, what about your job?
Who starts against Miami? Well, we'll know next week. We'll know next week when someone transfers. But that, I just keep going back to just
I feel like we have these discussions. We all pound our fists. Oh, like this guy, no Angeli, and then
I'm an athlete guy. I want to see a quarterback that could get out of chaos and go make some plays. And it's Carr Minchie in this quarterback room.
Okay.
I will say I am more open. I'm considering the possibility Minchie wins the job more than I was at the start of spring ball.
I actually am too, considering I had it at like 0% and now it's somewhere above 0. I don't know. Or maybe not. It wasn't 0, but I will say this. Before spring ball, I was like pretty confident that it's going to be Steve. And I don't think Steve, from just kind of piecing all of the things together, I don't think Steve has had the spring ball that I thought he was going to have to just like make it clear that he was just the best quarterback. I don't think that's taken place. So I think he had the opportunity to just take the job and it's his. And I don't think he's done that this spring. You guys know I love Steve. It hurts to say, but I think that's what's happened.
And a quick 30 on that, Mike. That's going back to my point I talked about 2 months ago. Whoever wins this job, you got to look at it for 25 and 26. You got to be a 2-year process, with this thing.
100%.
I mean, you just do it. That's the whole reason why you didn't go to the portal. Was no matter if Steve Angeli, to your point, Singer, comes in and kicks butt this spring, well, he's a 2-year starter because he still has 2 years. So why even do this entire thing again next year? It
could be. It's just a long season. Things happen. Someone just said
of course, injuries happen. If Angeli starts and he gets hurt in game 3 and Carr comes in and finishes out the rest of the season, sure. We went through that in 15 with Malik and Deshaun Kaiser. When that injury took place and how that went into the 16 season. So that's why these quarterbacks have multiple years. People forget Steve has 2 years. He was a redshirt his first year in 22. So if he wins the job, bam, he's the starting quarterback for the next 2 years. That's why going the other point, someone's got to leave because then you got a 2-year guy. Who your number 2 is, working his way, keep getting better, going into games when someone needs a rest, or like Riley when he got knocked out and Angeli goes in and finishes a drive, and those things. And then you got Blake Hebert, who's a solid number 3, damn good quarterback. And you want to talk about a guy who could run and throw, it's definitely him as well, coming in. And then Grubbs, you just keep this cycle just one after another. So
folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet. Jay Patterson said if Singer's off Steve, then Steve's cooked. Now, I'm not saying that. I would guess he's QB1 for Miami, but I'm just not saying it with as much confidence as I was.
The offense better be lights out because you just don't have that threat of an athlete on the perimeter. You just don't. And so when it's 3rd and 2, everyone knows it's going to be Love getting the ball and not the threat of a quarterback. So you lose that extra blocker. That's why Notre Dame was so dynamic last year. You always had an extra blocker for Riley. You don't have that with Steve.
It was such a weapon for them, and
it's huge.
The fan base realized that enough, to be frank.
Yeah, man. That's like I said, going back rewatching the games, like, man, they did it way more than you thought. Even in games they didn't utilize him, it was always there. Teams you could tell were always thinking of Riley, and then he wouldn't use it. They hit other plays. So if Steve's the quarterback, the offense is going to be different. It just is, and it may be more spread because you don't have as many tight ends as you have had over the years. So you're looking at a true 11 type personnel spread out formation wise.
Tim, you had texted me earlier saying that you're very optimistic and excited right now. Let's hear about that.
Well, just once again, going back to the the reports the fellas have given, just it's the young. I like spring. I like spring football because it's always about the young guys. It's always about those guys. Like I used earlier, Styles Prescott and Tay Johnson that were forgotten for a year. In football, you always forget about those guys at redshirt because you got the next batch of freshmen coming in. That's all you want to talk about is those new freshmen. I'm sure Jack gets questions all the time about, he's shaking his head. The incoming guys. Yeah. Well, what about T. Johnson? What about Styles Prescott? What about this guy and that guy? All these other guys moving up. Carson Hobbs. Another one out there. But that's what's exciting when you see those names because we loved them in high school. Bam, they got a good redshirt year, and now they're coming up as redshirt freshmen, possibly getting on the field, kind of like a Don Schuler, right? Don Schuler was that forgotten guy. Everybody penciled in Rod Hurd last year as the starting safety. Schuler doesn't come off the field in 16 games, and can Tay Johnson be that type of guy? So, and then it's always exciting with the young guys. I know the offensive line is in flux, and Derby gets injured, but it's nice to see. Well, Matty Augustine was the next man in over there. They don't have probably the numbers, but it's nice to see his name out there. And Otting and Cam Herron, who Singer and I love Cam Herron, and excited he got to come aboard. It's great seeing the reports on him, but super, super excited about the defense. You think you lose a couple All-Americans, and my God, Jack, I mean, they have 6 D tackles. It sounds like they're just going to be like, a hockey team just rotating.
Yeah, it feels like
that they have the development of Bryce, of Young, and the linebackers. It's an exciting group on defense.
It does feel like the defensive tackle room is going to be by committee, because I don't see like they did this with JJB too, like Dawson going with the second team for now, but I would think Dawson is a starter, at least plays starting caliber reps. But I mean, if he's not, that means Jason Onyé is real. You got Onyé look good. Onyé look really good.
I think the transfers, Dawson and what's the kid from USC's name?
Elijah Hughes.
Elijah Hughes.
Then I think that those guys may not be starters. I think it's going to be Onyé, Rubio, Heinisch. They love Heinisch.
Oh, yeah. So Heinisch, I would play a ton on third and pass. Like in an ideal world. So I've said this before on YouTube. Like I would like to see Bryce Young take some 3-tech reps, because in an ideal world, I would love to see this third down package. Like two of the 3 of Botello, Sneed, and Traore, Heinisch at nose and Young at 3-tech, because that gets Young isolated on a guard, and no one is going to be remotely long enough at that position to block Bryce Young 6'7", 270. I think he is at this point. And Heinisch, I think, is their best pass rushing defensive tackle. I don't think he's never really gotten enough buzz throughout his career. Yeah. But certainly last year he was really good for them down the stretch. They did a lot of twists with him because he's an athlete. And he, frankly, like on the field, like he plays like a jerk in the best way. Like he brings that nastiness, that in your face attitude, that Notre Dame really needs on the front. But then they have size to complement it in Rubio and Onyé, who's suddenly 308 pounds, and Dawson. So I like 4 or 5 guys to play almost, I don't know about even, but like relatively even reps at this point.
Yeah. Exactly. Especially when you're looking at first and second down, third down's your whole entire different package there. And heck, one of the names you didn't even mention is Kingston. KVA is, he might be one of the best pass rushers on this team, the way he plays the edge. So super exciting to obviously
they have a ton of options for that package.
Oh, it's loaded. Their whole dime package. It's funny when Singer and I first started this thing, we called it the Bo Bauer package, because Bauer would come in on third and long and it'd be this little hybrid group, and it's just grown into this. Bam! It's just all over the place.
It's a different personnel grouping. Which I mean, was what it should be. Like they did this a good amount last year, and again, that's why, like, man, Bryce Young, if you can move him inside on those obvious passing downs, like that gives you just a ton of versatility and ability to do different things.
And then it's real quick on the safeties. Yes, you lose Watts, but the length that you're gaining, obviously, with Talich out there, Tay Johnson, the experience of a Don Schuler, man, we talk about Stroman. I watched his film recently. That dude's nuts from Vautech. He will knock you into next week, man. He is awesome to watch. So found some good film on him, and it's a talented group. I know we're talking about quarterbacks and the O-line in flux, man. The athletes on defense are going to be lights out for this entire coaching staff. So it's going to be a fun group to watch.
I do want to warn about shiny new object syndrome with this, and like with the defensive tackles too, to some extent, because like they thought, like they said multiple times, like Cross and Mills were the root of everything they did on the pass rush. And that's not to say they're irreplaceable. Because I think Notre Dame's doing the replace them in the aggregate thing. If anyone's seen Moneyball here, at safety, like Watts obviously did a lot that people could see. But he did a lot for them that no one could see, like the getting everyone lined up right, the adjustments. Like he had the ability to sniff out plays before they began, like no one I've ever covered before. And I know I haven't been doing this for that long, but like it was special the way he would just be at the ball carrier, particularly down the stretch, like in the Indiana and Georgia games, and at least once against Ohio State. He covered up a lot for them on defense, and that's going to be tough to replace.
Oh, that's why he's on our Mount Rushmore of safeties at ND. He's a legend. I mean, seriously, especially when he first started coming on, that's in 2021 when they needed bodies at Rover back then, and they moved him from wide receiver, and then in 2022. Singer and I, so many times in our post-game shows, I would just complain, can they play Watts more? It was so noticeable in 2022 seeing him on the field, just everywhere, his athleticism, his range. And then obviously he ends up being, one of the greatest of all time in 23 and 24 for Notre Dame. So you're right. Yes, there's bodies. It's always exciting with the new guys.
Yeah.
Replacing Watts and Riley Leonard are the two that are going to be obviously the two hardest things to replace. And that's your deep safety who does a million things and your quarterback that took you to the championship game. So the tackles, two great ones, and Cross and Mills, but you're right. They got beef bodies, way more 300-pounders inside than we've seen in a while at Notre Dame.
If only Duke didn't play Leonard in 2021, man.
You're right. There's your well then, ask for a double bonus COVID year. That's I'm surprised you guys just don't keep asking for stuff. Hey, I played 4.5 games one year. Get another one back. So
I'm not gonna lie, Tim. I was thinking the same thing about Leonard. Like
year two Leonard, I think would have been phenomenal.
It's year
5 games. I think he got in 5 games, and a couple games were just.
I remember it being like 10 or so games as like a backup, or maybe they realized he was a good enough athlete to just to just have a run package in for him. Oh, it was a 3-9 Duke team. It's
yeah. No, you're right. I thought it was less in 2021. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm looking it up.
I got you.
He did. Let me sort my career. 7 games in 21, 13 in 2022, and 7 in 2023. So it's like we're in the year 2025. If you only played 4 years of college football, like who cares? You can play 5 or 6. Drew Pine.
It's awesome.
Drew Pine was in the recruiting class with Bryce Young, the original Bryce Young, not the current Notre Dame Bryce Young. DJ Uiagalelei was in that class.
The top 3 quarterbacks, right, were Young, Stroud, and DJ.
Bryce Young is going on his 3rd year in the NFL?
Yeah,
and Drew Pine has freaking I just dropped the full-on F-bomb. 2 more years. 2 more years. You're telling me Drew Pine. Love Drew Pine. Drew, if you're watching this, Drew's parents, I love you guys. I love the Drew Pine family. I've met all of them. Love you guys. How the hell is Drew Pine get 7 years? We have to watch 7 years of Drew Pine.
So
we only got Riley. I know how, but we only get Riley Leonard for 4 seasons. That sucks.
So set the record straight on Pine eligibility. 2020 COVID year, 2021 standard redshirt, 2022 played, 2023 medical redshirt, 2024 played, and now it is 2 more years left to play.
Double bonus.
So he didn't play in either of his first 2 years, but one of them was the COVID year, so he can use the regular red shirt in the second year.
How Leonard is just the standard. You red shirt and you play 4, and he doesn't get the double COVID medical.
That was Jack Cohn as well. After 21, he redshirted in 20, which was a COVID year, and I believe the NCAA. The whole reason why, because Kelly and them tried petitioning, and it was like, no, he redshirted. He didn't play, so he don't get a COVID because he didn't play. And they're like, well, he redshirted because it was COVID. And try getting in that bonus year, man. 2022 would have looked different.
It's all nonsense. You know who else is similarly screwed by just playing over 4 games? Like Eli Raridan realistically should have 2 years left because he missed. He played. He was healthy enough for 5 games in 2022 and then 5 or 6 in 2023. Yep. So we back-to-back ACL tears and you don't get a single extra year for that.
Petition. He got injured in season. You petition, man. You just keep going. It's a lawyer's world, man. You find a lawyer in Iowa to go fight for it.
All right, that is going to wrap up the show. Very fun, lively discussion. Talk a little injury news, which was focused on Gerby Lambert, lots of quarterback discussion, and then other little practice and just kind of Notre Dame football tidbits and nuggets at the other positions as well. Good stuff. I hope you guys found it enjoyable, whether you disagreed or agreed or somewhere in between or both, whatever it is. We just hope that you liked it and you hit the thumbs up and you subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel. And we would ask you to consider going to blueandgold.com after the show. If you need more Notre Dame fix, go to the website, consider subscribing, get on the Loose Emoji message board, and talk to thousands of other Notre Dame fans, as well as the 3 guys here on the screen. Again, folks, appreciate you joining. And as always, we will catch you next time.